News Talk 96.9, Hank Morse, Radio Row. Very excited to have the legendary Utah Senator Orrin Hatch. You're running for re-election, correct?
I am. Nice to be with you, Hank, and nice to be with the folks up in Boston.
You know, thank you for being here. And if you win your re-election, which everybody expects, of course, 35 years, congratulations. You'll be the senior ranking Republican senator in the Senate, correct?
Well, I think that's right.
And that's a pretty impressive record. Let me ask you this.
Thank you.
Mitt Romney, he comes out, he's against an opponent who has a lot of name recognition, yet a lot of Republicans have told me this week the country still needs to get to know Mitt Romney. Do you think it's true, and what do you think Mitt needs to do tonight so those people embrace him?
Well, you folks up in Boston and Massachusetts know Mitt Romney. You saw what he did for the state of Massachusetts. Balanced the budget all 4 years, got rid of that $3 billion deficit, made a lot of changes up there. You know, got along pretty well with the state legislature, was 85% Democrat and pretty much opposed to a lot of the things he wanted. He's a natural-born leader. He's tough. He's smart. Of course, he's a Harvard graduate. He's one of these guys that went to not only law school, but MBA school at the same time. I mean, that's pretty hard to do. Law school alone is a gut-wrencher, you know.
Can you imagine what he reads on his Kindle, for crying out loud? He probably reads 2 books at a time.
Listen, he's a brilliant guy, and there's no question he's one of the smartest business people in the world today. And you know, this is a fellow who understands where economics comes from. He understands economics. He's a person we absolutely need in this country with the high deficits, the high difficulties, the dominance of the federal government, the continued raising of taxes, the spending, the taxing, the over-regulatory nature of what's going on right now. Mitt knows how to straighten all that out, and it's going to be tough.
What's your number one criticism of the Obama administration and the president himself?
Well, they're bleeding us to death by taxing us to death, spending us to death, over-regulating us to death. And I think Obamacare is never going to work well, and it's always going to continue to rise in costs. And in the end, we'll have less good health care. You know, let's be honest about it. We've got to do something about the entitlement programs. We know that Medicare is now $300 billion in the hole every year. And it's a wonderful program that has to be maintained. We know that Medicaid doesn't have a stream of money paying for it. It's the taxpayers who pay for it. And yet they're running out of control. And I don't hear anything from the Obama administration or from any Democrat in particular as to what we should do about it.
You bring up Obamacare, and it's unpopular with the American people.
Well,
8.2% unemployment,
right.
42 consecutive months unemployment above 8%. We still have a war going on.
Right.
Yet it's a pretty tight race. Any reason why Mitt Romney doesn't have a big lead in this race? What do you think the reason is?
Well, I actually think that there are many reasons why Romney is not overwhelmingly leading. A lot of it is the country's pretty well matched between liberals and conservatives, and there are 11 or 12 swing states that really are going to make the difference here. But I think Romney's going to come out of it much better. I remember when Reagan ran back in 1976, I went to multiple states for Ronald Reagan. Jack Kemp and I were the principal surrogates. And I have to say that race was very, very close. We had a similar economy, just in the dumps. And it was very, very close right up until the last couple of weeks, and then Reagan started to pull away. That's what's going to happen here. When people have to start centering on the race, and they realize that like you say, we've had 42 months of better than 8% unemployment. The deficit has risen to probably before the end of this convention somewhere around $16 trillion. If Obama's reelected, it's going to probably hit $20-25 trillion. The country that we all know is the country of opportunity and wealth and prosperity is going to be no more. We can't afford another 4 years of President Obama, and this comes from somebody who likes him as a person.
You're the ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee.
Right.
Talk a little bit about the credit crunch in our country, because we're trying to expand and create more opportunities, yet we really aren't willing, or the banks, it's difficult because of all the problems they had. So many banks went under, and banks were bailed out. How do you balance like trying to grow and get businesses to grow, but banks are much more tighter with their lending practices.
We've got to get rid of Dodd-Frank. As much as I believe Obamacare is a tragedy and a terrible bill, Dodd-Frank is even worse. And they have hamstrung the smaller banks in this country to the point where they're over-regulating them to the point they can't make loans. And if they can't make loans, that's where these small businesses that create 70% of the jobs actually get their loans so they can continue to employ people. And then you add Obamacare to that, and a lot of small businesses aren't going to go over 49 employees, because the minute they do, they're going to owe health care insurance for every employee that they have, and not just health care insurance, but the highest cost health care insurance. So, it's typical of our friends on the other side. They think there's an never-ending font of money that's going to pay for all of their schemes, and it's not there right now. And the United States is in real serious difficulty, and it's because of the overspending, the over-regulatory practices of the Obama administration and Democrats in general.
Senator Orrin Hatch, Utah, thank you for joining us.
Great to be with you.
96.9 Boston Talks.
Say hello to all my friends up there in Massachusetts.